'Cause we're walking worlds and we're talking worlds with Pedro. Yeah, we're walking worlds and we're talking worlds with Pedro. Brian's here too, he's here to ask questions for you about D&D or really anything. 'Cause we're walking worlds and we're talking worlds with Pedro. Under the show! Let's get under the show! Here we go! Faded.
Oh, that was a sweet wave. I was just over here clicking it, making sure it all worked, and you were just like,
I'm in. So I take it we're live then.
We better be. Oh, dude, I just watched it pop up as pretty sweet. Yeah, we're
good.
live, man.
All right. Well, hey everybody. Welcome to World Talkers. I'm going to try and stop swiveling in my chair before I continue. Welcome to World Talkers, where we are going to talk about World Walkers, the show. And I am Brian Russell, the creator of the Underfold webcomic.
I think you're the creator of World Walkers. Like
the creator of
just
World
grab
Walkers.
it right away.
I'm here. This is totally mine. I did all of this. Pedro's here, my assistant. No. Not like anybody here would believe that anyways. No. So I'm Brian, creator of the Underfold webcomic, and I'm here with Pedro, the creator of World Walkers, creator and GM of all of the World Walkers different games, the streams, the podcast, and everything. And we're here with a show because we just want to well, there's a lot going on in World Walkers. If you haven't caught up, you need to, because it's amazing. But we're here to kind of gush, but also to ask Pedro about the worlds that he's made, because he let it slip probably a little while ago, probably sometime late last year, that the person. So if you guys remember, at the very beginning, they met a man named Patch in a bar, who was the Dream King, and he sent them on this quest to get all the shards of of the coughing tree.
The shards of stardust, yeah.
The shards of stardust, and it turns out that Patch, unbeknownst to anybody else other than Pedro at the time, had been a player before. So that was a character that a player had played and became the King of Dreams at some point. And so after that point, my mind was blown, and I wanted to know a lot more about about everything that happened up to where we caught up. And we also kind of want to go over stuff that has happened in the previous episode of the podcast. And we're going to have, well, for patrons, you guys know that a new show just dropped, and so that might be a new thing that starts up soon, live.
I think the idea is that like we'll talk about the podcast, but we also want to kind of stretch out and make sure that people have information and kind of jump into like all the different worlds, because we're going to be running sooner than I think any of us realize. Yeah, we have a game running on Wednesday nights at 9 Eastern. Pretty soon we're going to be starting a game on Tuesdays. And that's going to be the COG with the Savage World system. And you were mentioning patrons have access to the podcast version of it right now. But and there's going to be another game starting up before then. And so all these worlds are kind of interconnect. And people have been throwing us questions trying to figure out more about how everything interconnects. And we thought it'd be easier just to kind of basically steal Talking Dead. Wholesale.
I've never heard of that show before in my life. This is an idea I came up with totally on my own.
Yeah, clearly.
Well, okay. Well, let's get into it. I think. So here's the question I think we should start out with is, how long have you been playing with all of these different worlds?
21 years. So
what like started it?
I was hanging out with my friend Nathan. It was the reason I know like the exact date is that it was it was basically just like 2 days around my brother's birthday. And so he had come over and he had written down the rules that somebody else had taught him. and said we should totally make a character and we should play real quick. And I made the character. I made like a thief named Lobo, and I died right away. And he was like, "All right, well, I gotta go." And that was kind of it. He was just he stayed the night. We were like in like freshmen in high school, and so no, not even that. Earlier than that, but he took off, and I took the little bit of rules that I'd written down with me to school, and tried to get people to play with me. And halfway through my freshman year, we had about like 20 or 25 players.
That's
And so
a lot of players.
yes, and I wanted to run everybody in the same world, so like everybody was running around, and I had like timetables and stuff. Like, okay, so if so and so plays at this point, and this is the time of day they'd be in, they would be able to run to these people, and I'd call people up and be like, hey, so Jeremiah's in the area, and he's, what do you want to do? And like I kept track of all this crazy stuff. So by the end, I had like 25 players in my freshman year, and it never occurred to me to not constantly make everything really complicated with lots of players and connections and stuff like that. So yeah,
that's awesome. Well, what world did you start with?
Menroth. That's the oldest world. That's the world, if you listen to the podcast, that's the world that Voss is from, and it's also the world that they play in on Wednesday nights. That is by far the oldest one. And they started off on a floating island. And for, I think, a couple of years, they didn't know it was a floating island because it was surrounded by something called the Great Forest. It's essentially impenetrable. The deeper you get, the wilder and more difficult it gets. So, like, there was a group that went in like 7 days, and they were fighting undead dragons. And undead dragons are not usually native to forest. So, and they couldn't figure out why the forest was so volatile and stuff. And it took them years to find out they were on an actual floating island, and they couldn't get off.
That's rad. That's pretty cool. Oh, that's awesome. Let's see. Let's pull one of these questions. How did you and the World Walkers meet?
So I used to do a comic strip called Rule Zero, and Rule Zero, if you don't know, Rule Zero is what they say in the beginning of like it's the first rule of D&D, is that everyone's there to have fun, that fun matters. Sometimes it's taken as like the GM is always right or whatever, but that's the gist of it. And I used to do a comic about a group of people who probably shouldn't be playing together but were, and I did that for a few years. And during that time, I had met Megan McKay of Doodle for Food in these like creator hangout chats we used to do. And then one day she let me know that her and some friends had a GM, but now they didn't have a GM, and they're wondering if I would do it. And I said, like, at this time I was already running games for people, like, I guess professionally. Like I worked out of a game shop, and I was running about, like, I think at the time 7 or 8 games. And I said, like, I could add another game to my plate, but you have to let me do something with it. Like, I'm totally cool with doing it, but I want to stream it. And they were like, no. But they let me podcast it. So we play, and then I record everything, and then I turn it into an actual play podcast. And what that means for me, a lot of people use it in different ways, but for me it means like you actually hear us playing it, and we're not editing it to make ourselves sound better than what we like. Whatever you hear on the podcast, that's it. Because I want to be able to play live in front of people one day, and I don't want them to be like, the hell is this? Like, that's as good as I get. Like, that's
you're a lot better on your podcast.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Where's that silky voice? But that's how we met. So we started playing, and I pitched them something that I thought would let them be as creative as they wanted to be, and didn't, like, because I put them in a world, and then I don't want to hit them with a whole bunch of rules like, well, in this world we do this and this and this. I thought that'd be like really fun and flexible for them, so they would have the freedom to kind of make what they wanted to. So
yeah, and that's awesome, because you've got a forged from Cog and a forged from Obrimos, and they are completely different entities.
Yep. Yeah. And one of them is a magically infused armored golem that decided to be a gunslinger, and the other one is a suit of armor that has an elemental stone of wind basically enchanted into him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty different.
That's really cool. It's all super cool. Let's see. So that actually kind of gets to that actually answers one of these questions.
Oh yeah,
which was why did you choose the dream world to start for the campaign?
I thought it'd be like an easy way to bring them all together, and I thought it'd be like, everyone wants to make shitty comments about starting off in taverns.
Mhm.
And I like starting off in taverns. I don't really care, but I thought that'd be the nice twist. Is like it looks like they're starting off in a tavern, and then it doesn't take long before everything changes. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Now, I actually, in preparation for the show, I went back and listened to the first episode all over again with fresh, old eyes, having listened to the rest of the podcast.
yeah,
And what was really fun is seeing that even in the first episode, you were dropping hints to us the entire time that this was a bigger world.
yeah.
If you guys go back and listen to the first episode, every character comes in and the door changes just a little bit. Well, actually, sometimes in very big ways, but the door changes for each of their worlds that they're coming from. So like the door for Obrimos opens, and there's a little bit of gray shadow that kind of follows Brummelstone and Roberto into the door, and it was like going back and listening to it, I'm like, oh, he's known the whole time. This is amazing. Like, sorry, I'm not here to just blow
No.
smoke, but
that is like one of the document that I use to keep track of everything. It's like I think it's like 90 some pages, might be 100 pages now, and it's like everything that's happened and like all the things I need to hit to make sure it's like I'll have a character say something knowing that it might not come back for 6 months or whatever. Like we started playing in September of 2016, but we didn't launch until December 4th of 2016. Right now, the episode I'm editing, we recorded June 6th, the first week of June in 2017, but it's February 22nd of 2018. So yeah, I got some backlog to get through still.
That's good though. I mean, that's nice from a creative standpoint because you're covered for a while. If anything terrible happens, like it did, then you have backlog to work through. So so it's good, smart thinking.
It's just that we can't keep up. Like we play weekly when possible, and the episodes tend to I just cut them when they're natural. Like I'm not trying to fit them in a certain point, but when it feels like we've hit, like my games seem to like right around the halfway point. Like if it's a 3-hour game, right around an hour and a half, that seems to be when the like a good closing beat is. I don't plan it that way. It's just how it ends up. So I usually get 2 or 3 episodes out of every game session. And so, yeah, I wasn't trying to give myself. It's actually scary because I don't have it around here right now, but I have a couple hard drives with all the information on it. I've got everything triple backed up because like it's nice to have all that backlog, but I was terrified it can all just disappear and there's nothing.
If anything happens to that, you suck.
Yeah, I've got it on Google Drive. I've got it on an SD. I've got it on two different hard drives, and then a chunk of it's also on my Mac. So
that's smart.
It's terrifying. It's just I just live in terror, Brian. Like constant vigilance.
Well, good. That's good. That's a good place to live. So let's see. I'm trying to parse my thoughts between what I know as a patron. If you don't know, as a patron, you can listen to. Hey, we're here. We might as well plug it. That's cool. As a patron of, I think 10 or 3.
What? No. Yeah.
Anyways,
patrons get access to exclusive art and exclusive episodes. If you're a regular patron, like $1 patron,
and early.
Yeah, and then early too. Yeah, so if you're if you pledge at $1 or more, you get access to artwork and news and stuff like that. But if you're a $3 patron, you actually get the episodes early, so they come out always for patrons first. than everybody else. And there's exclusive episodes too. Like there's a 2-part storyline where Vasa time travels through Obrimos. There's a 2-part storyline
That
where
stuff's the junk, you guys.
that
That was what finally sold me on becoming a patron.
Oh, really?
Because in the podcast, she disappears. And I was like, nuh-uh. I need to know. And you were like, find out what happens if you're a patron.
Which was nerve-wracking because I didn't want people to think I was doing it on purpose. Like I played a side adventure with her because we play every week. I don't want people to sit there when they're playing and watch somebody else's game. So I was like, well, what if we played in the middle of the week? I'll record that and I guess I'll put it on Patreon. Because, and it just worked out that way. But yeah, there's that. And then there's like a 2-part storyline where Brummelstone and a friend he makes along the way in COG, they have a pretty interesting adventure full of violence and magic, and it's got a little bit of backstory for a little connection to other worlds
and some romance.
Some
romance between Pedro and Wes. If
yeah,
you're looking for that. If that's something you're into. That's always good.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple other things from episode 1 that come back into play in later episodes. I won't get into it yet, but we might talk about that next week. So one thing that I did want to mention is I'm going to be a little bit cagey about spoilers for the latest episode this week, but next week we're going Talking Dead. We're going Talking Dead rules. It's an obvious spoiler show, so if you don't want to know spoilers, listen to the episode and then come here.
And the way it should work is the episodes usually come out Sunday night or Monday, so then you have that many days until Thursday. So
to get it in, you can do it. It's so good. You want to listen to it right away, anyways. So let's see. Let's jump to something very exciting that I think most people will want to know about.
All right.
You recently reached a Patreon goal.
Nope. Nope. Closing down Patreon. Too bad.
You did. You can't hide from it. And this Patreon goal was, I think, crowd forced upon you.
Yes.
From both the World Walkers during a live draw, which you can also get to be a part of as a patron. But I think it was kind of forced upon you in an unwilling way on your part. But you did it anyways. And that goal's recently.
Because I didn't believe it would happen. Like, I was like, well, I'll put it at an amount we won't make for a long time. And then people will forget about it. I can take the goal down or something. And be like, sorry, guys. None of us wanted this. But
you guys, they reached it. It's a musical episode. There's a musical episode of World Walkers coming up. And if you've been listening, then you know that a couple of them are very musical savvy. And I'm really excited about it.
It's going to be interesting. Like, we're going to, we've actually got a couple of musicians we know in real life, and they're going to jump in as bards. So that's going to be really fun.
That's awesome.
Not only that, everyone, basically everyone's going to tell me essentially what they want out of the musical episode, the players, and then we're going to write it up. It's going to be, I don't want to say it's out of continuity, but because like I said earlier, we're so far ahead that if we wrote the musical episode and played it chronologically, it would be maybe a year before anyone hears it. So we're trying to get it so we're going to try to find a nice logical place where it fits in, and it's in, it's chronological. I mean, it's canon. Like it'll be part of the story, but trying to figure out a place we can place it where it'll still make sense. So we're going to basically record it, see what happens, and then release it as soon as we can. But there's a couple bonus things coming out because I know that people who are members of Patreon, they are going to get the next episode of Colossus versus the World pretty soon, which is it's a Marvel heroic role playing podcast that we've been doing, a side series where my brother, who is convinced that he can speak Russian, is trying to take over the Marvel universe with Colossus. There's a
you guys here. Wait, Pedro's missing the word ridiculous. It's a ridiculous Marvel heroic role playing game.
Yeah, it's unnecessary.
It starts off with just blatant murder of all of your favorite X-Men characters,
and a blatant
it's fantastic.
disrespect for Russian geography.
Disrespect for just about everything.
Everything, yeah. Ertleby's backstory episode's coming.
Yes.
Which was another goal that we hit, and then and the musical episode. So it's really like not trying to keep plugging Patreon, but like Patreon, like people who have supported it have made this so much bigger than it normally is because there's a lot of things I get to do now. I mean, I'm using a new mic because I was able to just go get what I needed when my other mic was screwing up. Like,
awesome.
It's been a huge help. But musical episode. I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's gonna be good. I'm really excited. After hearing the serenade to Brummelstone from Enzo's character, I'm just ready. I'm ready for it.
Just ready.
It's gonna be great.
Your body's ready.
So okay, let's dig down into some lore stuff.
All right.
Because we've got 55 episodes under our belt at this point. We've been through two worlds. Well, three.
Two.
Three worlds.
There's the Dreamscape.
That's one, right?
Sure, kind of.
Yeah. You're in it.
I would say that they're not through it. They just started there and left right away.
Well,
yeah.
They did. They got some house armor first.
Yeah.
Was that on? That was in the Patreon episode, wasn't it?
No.
Shoot.
No. House episode. No. Early on.
I have further questions about Tompkins, but we'll get there.
Okay.
Pretty sure that was in.
Okay.
But yeah, lots of good goofs. That was when we first found out that Megan's character had a very low perception, and within the time,
comically low
the time
for
of the whole
sharpshooter.
thing,
Yeah.
comically low perception, and then Vasa with her comically low strength, trying to climb ropes and such. Yeah. It's always good.
Which is funny because Vasa is exceptionally good at so many things that finding out that she can't climb ropes or walls.
It's probably one of my favorite moments after the entire running gag, that's been 55 episodes long of her not being able to climb ropes. She has finally taken some skill that gives her advantage on athletics.
Yeah.
And was not able to use it.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So all of the characters on the podcast are lucid dreamers.
Yes.
Now, is this something that you've used in the past, or is it something that you made up specifically for these characters for this podcast?
It's nothing that I've blatantly used. Like, I've known it's been written down. It's a part of the story, but I've never had to use that mechanic before. So, yeah, I've used the opposite. I've used the fact that there is one more lucid dreamer. It was a player, the same player who played Patch, played a thief named Sebastian, and Sebastian was a lucid dreamer because he had to. There was a whole storyline of like this kind of like this sentient nightmare that was hunting him down, and it was he was.
So
he
that
was
sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's Freddy Krueger. Yeah.
Oh,
it's just straight up Freddy Krueger.
Lucid nightmares chasing after the main characters.
Yeah. So it was years ago. Like, I've had all this like kind of written down or figured out and stuff. So like, as years and years ago, there was like this kind of entity that was jumping from dreamscape to dreamscape and kind of trying to find just someone to essentially just play with, to mess with, and finally found a lucid dreamer on Menroth whose name was Sebastian. That was the player. And so yeah, it was like a reoccurring villain of his. But other than that, I don't think I've had a player who was a lucid dreamer. Yeah.
So tell us more about because I'm curious, like in like Lord of the Rings, you have the creation of the ring leads to all of XYZ all the way down to what happens in Lord of the Rings. You've got everything that happens. So what's like the did the story of the island coming apart happen within game?
No, that actually usually that's the case. Usually I have so many events that happen like on COG, I always like run a series of stories and then jump ahead hundreds of years. So like COG is the development of various storylines. But
Mm-hmm.
no, for this one it didn't have a player any player infused there's no player based catalyst for that. It
Okay,
was
cool.
that I had Stardust for a long time and it had always been like a nice little place. The Dreaming Tree had always been one of the different ways that you could travel. There was a storyline a number of years ago where these time travelers called the Chronos were taking apart worlds, and for a while they were using the Dreaming Tree to jump between worlds. Like they would get to Stardust. The whole idea was they would fall asleep, and then Patch, the Dreaming King, could pull them into the Dreaming, and then allow them to walk the limbs of the Dreaming Tree to get to the next world, and that's how they jumped from world to world. So it's been featured in that regard, but in terms of like players didn't. There's no storyline that caused. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Because we've heard. We've only gotten the warnings. A couple people now in the podcast have told Vasa that she needs to go home, for various reasons. They all sound bad news. But you already know what happens, or what has happened to the world, correct? Like,
yeah.
This happened in game.
Yeah, if
something bad happened.
If you're watching World Walkers Menroth, they Vasa's city of Ralum is talked about a number of times, and it's not really a big secret. I guess we can wait till next week to talk about that kind of thing, unless you don't like. But no, it's pretty well known if you're watching the stream. Yeah, while Vasa was away, this is player caused incident. While the World Walkers have been jumping from world to world looking for Shard to Stardust, there was another group that I was running at the game shop that they had went from the mainland to the floating island and discovered that there was this like essentially like former god that was now like a tyrant emperor, and he had his eye on conquest and wanted to find a way off the island so he could work his way down and start conquering. And unfortunately, while they did stop him, it's a kind of almost, and it's not my fault. Like, in toppling the king, the group took the mantle of the emperor. They formed a council. It didn't take long before they kind of got corrupt. Wow. And then they led a war against the kingdom of Ralum. They didn't trust Ralum. Ralum knew the dangers of the island and came up and warned them that like things had to be done and they were going to take over, and the players were insulted by this, and it ended with them unleashing every dragon in the world upon Ralum.
Well, that's exciting.
And the kingdom of Ralum was lost, and it's now called Malthanos. It's not great. I mean, if you're a dragon, it's awesome, but yeah, that's fucking gone. So the players of World Walkers Menroth and the viewers know that, but Vasa has yet to discover what exactly has happened down there. But
yeah, that's exciting.
That's
funny.
That's the fun of running like all these games like in the same universe concurrently. Like all these crazy things happen in one game, and it totally affects the rest. Like the World Walkers have had an effect on the COG game that's been running. They've had an effect on the Menroth game in certain ways. We don't know it yet, but there's NPCs that are connected to the World Walkers and to the World Walkers podcast that, without anyone knowing, are featured in the other games. We just have to wait until their connections are revealed. So,
sorry, Vasa just showed up in the chat.
I was gonna say, I was like, the cool thing is that Jane We'll never watch this, so it's not like I can totally.
She's going to fight them personally.
Oh my
Not
god,
as
that's so
Vasa,
awesome!
but as Jane.
as Jane, yeah. No, I thought, I was like, well, Jane will never see this. I can actually. Everyone else knows about this stuff, but I don't think Jane ever like peeks in. Hi, Jane. Oh,
She heard Menroth, and she was like, "Hang on,
like,
I'm in.
I'll be back.
I'll kill everyone."
Oh man,
that's great. I don't even remember what I was going to ask now.
Well, you're asking about like basically it started with player causing event. Like, did players cause the events of World Walker?
Yeah.
Which no, they didn't, but they've caused a lot of the other things because the games are always running. Yeah. So, hey Jane, she just popped in. But yeah, and those players, that when that game wrapped up, they all retired their characters, and just like the player that played Patch years ago, they turned their characters over, so their characters are in the world still. Like if you go to the floating island on Menroth, that player is still the emperor. Like there's only one person left in charge. He became emperor. He's still there, and like the other characters are running around. So the barbarian of the group, I think went north to go conquer it. So he's there. Like they're all scattered about. Yeah.
I know all about that. I gave up one of my characters to you, sent him on a mission, and disappeared.
Oh, hold on. Jane's comment got moderated. I had to go ahead and approve it.
Was it the killing one?
Yeah, like, and all I hear then it's like, please let us know this is okay. Click. Is it some motherfuckers gonna be real silent?
That's the best.
Yeah, kill the emperor. Got it.
So
yeah, awesome. But yeah, a lot of times it is like and that's like I like running it that way. I like the worlds to feel living and breathing. So a lot of times it is the players. Like there's a world called Pasmos that I have, and it's this post-apocalyptic terrible world where demons have taken over the world. It's gone. It's already lost. It's like post-apocalyptic is the only way to describe it. All the races that you can play are underground. Like if the race doesn't have dark vision, it's not playable probably. And that is the direct result of players. That was a great place. I loved that world. Yeah, it's too bad. Shame.
Yeah, real shame.
It's terrible shame. Yeah, their actions.
Who was it, Pedro? Just let us know.
Oh, it's Frankie. No, it's Frankie.
Who ruined your show?
It wasn't the show. No, it was Frank was there. I believe Nathan from the COG game that's coming up on Tuesdays. He played it. Some other people that are not worth mentioning. But yeah, that world was the idea was that the entirety of the world was a dungeon. Yeah, shame. The entirety of the world is a dungeon. They don't know what the origin of their world was. But they can go in, and their entire core of the world is just dungeons. And that was supposed to be the point. Was like, go explore.
It was the dungeons.
It was the dungeon
dungeons
world.
To your dragons.
Yes, exactly. It was the dungeon. But now there's a game called Dungeon World, so I can't even say that. But yeah, it was a dungeon world where you just went. You know, at any point, it was supposed to be like inspired by Legend of Zelda. The idea that there was all these like entrances to like these crazy places, but they're all connected. And so I had all these like plans and maps, and fuck it. So the survivors
down there, you just have to fight demons.
The story is that the survivors of Pasmos, if you play on Pasmos, the whole thing is that like you are a base level below the surface of Pasmos, and you can't go up. But it's terrifying to go deeper because you're never going to know what you're going to find. So they basically sit in this constant state of concern and fear. And the whole point of the game is like, at what point are you going to go deeper and discover the mysteries of Pasmos and start, you know, either erasing threats or allying with people, and which creatures and which people do you ally with? That's the whole point of Pasmos. So,
well, somebody's crap talking the game I was in. Johnny, better watch your mouth. So okay, so let's. I think so. COG, so on Obrimos,
yeah.
They actually stayed there longer than I think we even remember because COG had so much going on.
Yeah.
But on Obrimos, you know, you mentioned the Chronos earlier, so you also had the so you had all these little places, and you had terrible, very small mushrooms that nearly took out the team.
Which, like, I did not plan for that to be any kind of real threat. Like, I thought, like, well, they're underground, myconids. How big a threat can that be? And like, those things
It's probably
almost, I don't know. And then,
it's
you know,
probably
the
one
best
of the
part,
funniest moments of the entire show to date was a giant Warforged almost getting taken out by a mushroom, a small one, if I remember
yeah,
correctly.
just a tiny little,
And that's how Sprouty became a
the Legend of
meme
Sprouty,
in the game.
which actually someone made a plush of him and they're sending it to me,
What?
and I'm so excited. Yeah, Josh, from World Walkers Menroth, like, he, way back in the day, he yeah, and that's true. That was the episode with Vasa validation. Like, they get down. It was like, seriously, I feel like it's like a great preview of the group dynamic, because they get down there and
Yes, that's
Vasa's
true.
like, let's not mess around. There's real threats down here. Fuck these mushrooms. Like, we're not gonna waste time trying to. And the group's like, I don't know. Maybe we should. You know, how bad can these mushrooms be? And then, Sprouty. And yeah, that was one of the best moments. Is like hearing hearing Vasa erupt with glee. Like, what did I tell you? Like, I don't have the exact quote, but yeah, I feel like that really set the tone.
It probably had more swearing in it. Let's be real.
A touch. But I mean, like, the dynamic was like, because you can hear like Enzo / Roberto. There's a bit of a tension where he's like, I just don't know if that's what we should have done or not. And I think I remember, like, too, there's a big kind of not, I don't want to say a preview, but there's a decent chunk of like info dump in that section that the group learns about too, with the shard. And I think that's one of the toughest things for the players versus the listeners, is the listeners get to just shred through episodes and they remember everything, but we've been playing this for over a year, so like the players don't always remember stuff, like using the shard's inspiration to navigate through tunnels and stuff like that. Like, it can be really easy to forget like the different things that the shards can do. And I always feel bad when, like, I guess, I mean, people should still do it, but like when someone's like, why don't they just do this again? It's like, because you get a different perspective, then
you can't bring it up again.
Yeah.
And you can't be like, you as the GM, you can't be like, so you sure you don't want to
I think sometimes, I think as a GM, sometimes
one.
you have to. I think it's irresponsible. I know some GMs like to just like shrug their shoulders and go, I don't know, man. I guess you forgot it. Screw you. But I think, like, if your game goes south and you could have stopped it and you didn't weigh out all the outcomes on your own actions too, it's hard to bitch. Like, I think part of, like, you know, if you read a book, part of the narrator's job, the writer's job, is to kind of help you remember the important plots, the important points. So like, I feel like GM should do that too. And like the GMs that there, you can tell when a GM just wants to gloat and feel superior, because they'll be like, that if you want. And they know the players don't remember. There's no way they remember. That was like half a year ago. You can't even give them an intelligence roll to remember something? No? Because if you give, that's the trick. If you give someone an intelligence roll and they fail, they at least know something's up. That's the true power of the intelligence roll. I'm going to give you an intelligence roll, see if you remember. Like, all right, cool. I roll it. I fail. Why did he do that? It's a great way to give players a tip. Because even if they didn't get it, they got it. Like, they know.
Unless you're the World Walkers cog stream and you can't roll an intelligence check for the life of you.
You guys,
and none of us ever are allowed to remember anything.
That's true.
That's just how that game. That was just a ill-fated.
Wiz War
team.
Previously on World Walker Z. What happened last time again?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and two, you just released a recap episode.
Yes. Yeah.
To kind of allow people to jump in 50 something episodes in. And even listening back to that, I was like, Oh man, I forgot how much I want to know how old Tompkins is.
Yeah. That's something that's
I need
funny.
to
Is like,
know this.
yeah, because every now and then Tompkins' past will get brought up, but he's not important to the story in that regard. Like he's not as important to the, if I may, he's not like from the player's perspective. They're not there to learn about Tompkins. They're there to do a lot of other bigger stuff.
Well, yeah.
But to listeners, they get like a bird's eye view. So they're kind of like,
Mhm.
whoa.
I want to know more about him right there.
Well,
That
like,
one NPC.
there's so much going on at the table, or the virtual table, if you will, that like someone might say something, and I do actually. This is something. There are times when I need a piece of information to come out, and I have
Mhm.
the advantage of cutting out crosstalk,
Mm-hmm.
so I can leave something. Like maybe there's times where like you hear it and you go like, "Why didn't the group follow up on that?" But that's me trying to keep your interest in the little tangents and the stories floating around, because
Right.
maybe they didn't hear it in crosstalk. So yeah.
That's
But
cool.
that was something that's been interesting. The effect that listeners have had on the games. I remember during like one of the live draws, listeners started really like hitting up with questions and asking stuff and trying to figure out about the shards. And the next time we played, like they were like, "Ah, yes, you know what I was thinking about doing," and they started like doing the things that were mentioned in the live stream, because they have that advantage. Anytime the World Walkers can dip into our Discord channel or look
Yeah.
online and see people are bringing up and going like, "Oh, huh."
Hint, hint, world walkers that are paying
No,
attention
no.
to the show. You can get some tips and tricks.
Is it a bit
You can work
soft?
your way
Yeah.
out.
We're gonna turn the volume a little bit. Thank you for telling me that. Yeah. So, I'm gonna try this, and let me know if that volume is too much or what. I'll adjust. But that should be good.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're still figuring this whole show out.
It's tough because
It took me a really long time to put up this wall. My wife doesn't care for it, but I think it makes the living room look a lot more roomy.
Yes.
So
I know. Brian shows up the first time we test this out, and he's like, "Hold on a second. Oh yes," and like I've just got like this is where I just in my office. Yeah, and oh, excuse me a second.
Excuse me as I adjust my my rifle on the wall.
Oh man.
Well, curious. Okay, so let's move. I guess since we'll kind of bust through, so that next week we can kind of catch up with the latest episode.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of time in COG, and you told me off air at some point that you were intentionally overloading them with quests.
Yep.
They were just, look at all this crap you can do. You're not going to be able to do all of it, but look at it all.
Mm-hmm.
What is there a storyline that they did not do that you wished they did?
Yeah, actually, yeah. There is the storyline. So there's different. That was the whole point of doing that. Was I wanted to establish at some point earlier in the game that like I didn't want the players to feel like they were going to go to a world, complete their quest, go to the next world. Like I wanted to let them know that like you never know what you're going to get on the world, because in Obrimos it is like that. It's like they show up, they kind of learn right away where the shard is, they work through their quest, they get the shard, they leave. So I wanted to establish right away that that's not how it's going to be going all the time. And I think like with COG, yeah, there's multiple storylines going. COG has the most dead content of anything I've done so far, because there's like entire, like I did not expect them to send Ertleby as a rat on a familiar up to a fucking airship and then jump on another airship and race over there and none of that like I expected. I didn't expect them to do several different things in that whole section. And there was actually I don't know if I've ever told anyone this, there is a whole section. I wrote up this giant battle that takes place across the jump rail. The whole idea was that the climax of COG would end on the jump rail, the magnetic train system that runs through COG, where they're actually going to be fighting on the rooftops, in the cabins, trying to take out the Thieves Guild they had encountered, and there's a whole section, and like there's a whole nother section of story where I thought, like, I was thinking they would. I've used this Thieves Guild throughout the years, but I've never really gotten to tell that story of what they're up to. And so I laced it into here, and I really did think that like the whole thing was going to end on the jump rail, and they were going to have to battle for the shard, and like the Thieves Guild was going to be, I think their name is mentioned, the Syndicate. Like the Syndicate would be moving the shard throughout the jump rail, and they were going to have to keep chasing it down and fighting and figuring things out. And it was supposed to be like super scary and wild. None of that shit happened. No, it's cool. Like, cause I wrote it. I don't ever get mad at people when players choose a path. But no, that was the one I was really interested in seeing where it went. But that was the point, is overloading the palette so that they would know that it's not supposed to be show up on a world, do your quest, move on.
It was interesting though, because you're right though, because it gave weight to the decisions.
Yeah.
You know, like if you choose to go back and help, say a halfling left in the prison, then you lose your cat.
Yep. And that halfling is like, that's not just a random NPC. That's a big NPC. Yeah.
And we may never know.
Well, exactly. Yeah. That was the whole idea, is that like,
we might, if a certain, group of people with guns show up at a certain place. Maybe. You never know.
But that was
excuse me.
Yeah, that's one of the most fun parts for me, is watching where players take the story, because I'll write it out, but I don't want to railroad anyone. I don't, but that's also, I want to make sure people, when they hear that, I'm always super conscious. I don't like when GMs speak with a certain level of absolute authority, because I feel like people listening don't know how much of what I say is based on my own style and the skill set I have. Because I think there are players who run stuff on the rails, or GMs, I mean, and I don't think they should be trashed for that, because that's their style, that's their skill set. They're really good at hammering things down and stuff like that. And I don't ever want to talk in such a way that makes somebody else feel like, well, that's not how I run my games. I guess I shouldn't do it that way. Like, run it however you want to. Like, it's just the way I do it. Like, yeah.
Let's see. Well, let's see. We don't have too much time left, but
yeah, we actually planned this, so any of you that watch Critical Role, we're not holding you up. Yeah, and that's very true too. What Wizwar says, giving the illusion of choice is really important too. If you know that you want them to head to a certain path, obviously giving them the freedom to break your path can be important, but also giving them the illusion of choice, I think, is always important. If you really know they kind of need to go this way, but they still feel like they had that choice, that's a really important, because that's part of like the whole GMing system, is always looking like you're in control, always look like you planned for that, always looking like, and so because they shouldn't be able to see the seams.
Right.
Whatever.
You're going that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on.
If you're a GM that has like 75% improv game sessions, and then 25% this and handwritten and already, like, that's just as viable as somebody who has to pre-write everything they do. Like, yeah. But as long as you're not letting them know what was where, like, Yeah.
You sure you don't want to go that way? Yeah. Are you sure you want to go this way?
And I think that sometimes,
because if you go this way, we're gonna have to take a break. I have to go to the bathroom.
That's important. That's important though. I think that, like, if a GM needs to do that,
yeah, it
should be all based on where the GM is at with their personal skills, where they're at, because, like, you can't be awesome every time. Even Matt Mercer from Critical Role, he will call for a bathroom break during a game. Like when he used to, I don't know if he does it on camera anymore, but like, he said there'd be a number of times where he'd be like, all right, let me go get some water real quick. And he'd go in the other room and go, yeah, there's no shame in your skill set. But you were going to
Because,
ask.
for instance,
Oh, sorry.
you had these terrifying dragon lizard things in the gray. I forget what they were called.
Yeah. The Grey Walkers.
Oh, well, that's pretty straightforward. Fine, sure. No, but you had these terrifying monsters that dripped with memory wiping disease, and here you have one of your characters that decides, I think I'm going to run on top of him and stab him right in the butt.
Right in the butt. Improv.
You can't plan for that.
Nope. I can now.
There's no amount of planning that you're like, I think one of them might try and jump on this thing.
Yeah.
And then take on the mantle of being the proctologist for the rest of the show. So, I have a favorite memory so far leading up. What's your? Do you have a favorite memory of your games so far?
World Walkers or anywhere?
Yeah. Let's go with what people have heard.
Sure.
But it can be either of the streams or something too.
Yeah. Favorite memory. I really enjoyed the moment between Tin and her master. That was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of emotion behind it, and I felt like that kind of made me. I've had like players show emotion before, but I wasn't sure if it was just that group. So it was nice to see that maybe it wasn't a fluke and that I can do emotional stuff too. If it's stuff people have seen, I can't say what one of my favorite moments is, but there's a moment coming way later.
Well, if it's not a stuff ruining thing, then you can.
No, it ruins it.
It's not a spoiler. Go for it.
It's a fucking terrible spoiler. But it happens way later down the line. And I really enjoyed that scene because it was really personal for me. I don't know. I don't know. It's too tough. There's spent like running with the World Walkers. You could grab like 1,000 moments and they'd all be my favorite because like there's just so much genuine like spontaneity in the group.
Yeah.
And everyone's really funny, so that helps. I've had a lot of fun when we did World Walkers COG. One of my favorite moments in there was, from my perspective anyway, was there's a moment when the cleric that you guys were running with, Corin, she decides to kind of stand up for herself, and she kind of goes on like this little speech, but all that was like improv. That was just me going like, this is what she would say at this point. And that was really good. I liked that moment. In Savage Worlds COG, is what we're temporarily calling right now, the Tuesday game. There's actually, if you listen in the Patreon,
COG Walkers.
No, it's not it. There's a moment where we go on this like Bob Ross joke rant. That was actually that's pretty high up on my list, but yeah.
I think one of my favorite memories, and it's just such a random thing. They're in Obrimos, and for whatever reason, Enzo wasn't there, and they are just getting creamed by the Grey Walkers.
Yeah.
And suddenly Enzo catches up. It like actually literally shows up to the hangout or whatever, and everybody's like, "Oh, thank God, you're here!" Oh
that was very legit.
And Roberto shows up from the ceiling. Sure.
Yeah, no, because he was running late, and so he kind of like we heard him on our headphones live coming in, like, "Hey, my chair's like, oh my God!" So I think I cleaned it up a little bit, but yeah, that was all authentic.
Like the real joy. The real joy in everybody's voice.
Joy. Yeah. Oh, geez. And then like the Vasa, the Vasa side story, the Travelers.
Yes.
That actually, that whole time might be my favorite.
And might I say, actually pretty shocking what winds up happening too.
Yeah.
I was surprised that it went that route.
Well, I wrote out, whenever I do stuff like this, I write out. Sorry. Disho is quoting one of the Bob Ross moments. That's a crooked little tree. We're going to send him to Washington. It's like Bob Ross on politics. It's a
Oh,
real
that's
quote
funny.
from him. But no, I wrote like a whole. It was a really hard like game to write up because I had to do it all on the fly. I didn't know which path she was going to take. It was time travel, and
Right.
I'm adamant about my time travel. Like I love time travel, so if it's not legit, if the time travel is all like destiny or all roads lead to Rome or some shit like that, like I don't
Lame.
enjoy that. So I spent a lot of time writing out a whole bunch of variations about how it could go, and I had to like improv on the fly and stuff. And yeah, so it's like one of the most genuine moments, one of the most genuine game sessions I've ever run. So
It's awesome.
yeah.
We have a couple more minutes. Does anybody in the chat have a question they want to ask? Specific or otherwise?
Yeah, and in future episodes, we'll leave time. Also, make sure you let us know.
I have a ton more questions written down.
Really?
Those were just the ones that I separated out for this time.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this on a weekly basis. We gotta save some.
I didn't know.
Well,
that's what I was gonna ask. I want like you guys out there. Let us know. Do you want to see this weekly? Are you like, well, bi-weekly's fine, or I never know. Like people complain about not being able to keep up with the podcast, and I always offer to slow down. And then they go, "What? No, Pedro, stop it!" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to legitimately figure out what to do with my life." So yeah, if you guys want to see this keep happening, like let us know so we know, so we're not like bothering you guys all the time. Johnny,
that's a good one.
How many years will the game run? Yes, weekly, please. Years is a good possible answer because I don't know. Like, I mean, I know how many worlds there are. I know how many shards are out there. I know in what order, like, I think by now it's known that, like, I gotta put this. I think by now it's known that, like, they're kind of following Tompkins as to where to go next. As long as Tompkins is alive, the game has one sort of length. If anything ever happens to Tompkins, the group's going to have to figure out where to go on their own. I have no idea what that's going to add time-wise. Like,
don't let Tompkins die.
Well, I mean, it's just a different game is all.
It could be interesting, yeah.
Let's see. Probably not a couple minutes, but
universe. Yes. Yeah. So if you guys want to, for questions that are going to be longer, I am gathering questions. So you can send them to me in the World Walkers Discord, or also just send them to
Tompkins' lives matter. I'm sorry.
Oh Lord.
Do your thing.
You can send them to me at the Underfold or Brian at theunderfold.com, and you can send me questions, and I will and I'll sort through them, and we can ask them
I want that t-shirt
during World
so
Talkers.
Bad. It'd be so offensive.
No, it's bad.
No, I know. No, geez,
it's
no.
bad. Stop laughing about it.
It's amazing.
Goodness gracious.
Oh man, yeah, and we do like
awesome.
keeping this length too. We want to make sure that it doesn't just go on and on and on and on. Like, but oh no, we are not hashtagging that. Like,
don't do it.
It's a funny joke in context. It will go very for real. It will go very badly online because people will think we're being disrespectful, and that's actually something I really do care a lot about. Like, is both the context and Black Lives Matter and that whole situation. I would know that will don't hashtag that.
Don't do it.
But in context, Jesus Christ, that was good. That's too good. Yeah, and we'll definitely talk more about the development history of the cinematic universe. I like that. But yeah, send your questions to Brian. If you send them to me too, Pedro at worldwalkerspodcast.com. I'll shoot them back over to Brian. I'm really obsessed with authenticity, so I haven't been looking at the questions. If I do too bad a job, I'll start looking at the questions to make sure the show is as good as possible. But right now, I think it's kind of fun.
I'm doing such a bad job. That's what he's trying to say.
No, actually, no. I'm saying like I don't know how much I'm gonna ramble. Yeah, But Critical Role is starting up, so we should probably let everyone go.
So
this is our lead-in.
Yeah, thank you for joining us for World Talkers, where we talked about World Walkers. And you can follow Pedro and the show at World Walkers on Twitter. Is it just World Walkers?
World Walkers Pod.
World Walkers Pod. And
Yep.
worldwalkerspodcast.com.
Yep.
All right, good.
Yep.
All the links are above me, so just look at those.
Yeah,
and we'll let you get out of here faster.
Yep, but we're on Google Play, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, all that fun stuff. So,
and if you enjoy the show, please leave reviews in iTunes, 5-star reviews. Don't come at us with those 4 stars.
No, leave the legit. It's actually funny. People
leave 5-star. Don't listen to Pedro. He's too humble.
No,
don't listen to him.
People
That's why
think
we
that
made
the rating. People think that the ratings get you that they're what make you trend and stuff like that, and they don't. They don't. I'll send you proof.
They help.
They help in
it makes Pedro feel better. You could literally save Pedro's life.
Don't put that on them. Jesus, that is a good point. I guess I should. No, I'm supposed to actually mention this. If you don't know about my current health problems right now, it's ties to an astrological sign. You can go to get more information at gofundme.com/everybody.
Pisces.
Yes, Pisces. gofundme.com/everybody. God damn, I keep messing up now. Now I'm laughing at Pisces. I actually thought about doing a comic strip again, and if I do it, it'll be called But I'm a Capricorn. It's my battle with cancer. Cancer. So have cancer. You can find out more information. GoFundMe.com/everybody-loves-Pedro, and you can get information, and any help obviously helps. What is that title that good?
That made me laugh. Cool. That was a good one.
All right, cool. Yeah, Critical Role. We're ruining. I'm sure Matt Mercer's really upset with us for stealing so many viewers.
But we will.
Critical Role starts at 10:30 now, just to cope with us.
He's moving up.
Yeah. Stop. All right. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Yep.
Cool.
We'll do it.
All right. Later.
Let's see.